And we are live. We are all live. This is a virtual connecting session. I'm Alan Levine coming to you from the middle of the night in Strawberry, Arizona. And we got a crew of folks there over in Manchester at the Alt-C conference. So I think you guys need to say hello. First, look, we got people photobombing. That's cool.
We're live and recording. No, you can come if you want, as long as you know. Just doing informed consent.
You're being tracked right now, so you guys want to say hello first from Manchester?
Sure.
Jonathan,
hey, I'm Jonathan Worth. Yeah, hello.
I'm Rebecca Ho. I'm Sarah Honeychurch.
And I'm Maha, and we've just listened to a wonderful keynote by Jonathan right now. And nobody wanted to ask questions, so I had to ask a question.
I thought it was amusing that the two people that asked questions, one was from Egypt, the other was from Australia.
We won't make any joke about the British because they're very sensitive about making jokes. So I'll call on people who are the virtual to introduce themselves because typically they say, well, you go next, and everybody's order is actually a little bit different. So to my left, wearing the pink lower thirds, Amy Burvaw.
Aloha. So I'm from Hawaii, and I was throwing out some pink and black sketches of Jonathan's lovely talk tonight, and I actually want to sketch some more because I'm stuck on a couple of the metaphors and I want to work some out, so I'll do some later. But yeah, I had a couple questions, but I don't know if Alan is going to let me ask them now, so I'll wait until he tells me I can.
To the dog. Okay. Next we have Simon Ensor.
Hi everybody, I'm Simon. I'm in Clermont-Ferrand. I'm in my daughter's bedroom. That's why it's all pink.
Oh, no,
We don't believe that. We think it's your room, Simon.
The background reminds me of Maha's house.
I know. I need to back up. I just have a kitchen. So Stephanie, who is in Atlanta.
Yes, I'm Stephanie. I'm in Atlanta. I am also in my kitchen.
Hey,
But it's
Stephanie.
dark. It's 5:30 in the morning, so.
Wow.
Excellent. And Susan?
Good morning, yeah.
Hi everyone, I'm Suzanne here, and I'm also in my daughter's bedroom, just like Simon, but the curtains are not pink here, yeah.
Is she asleep or does she think you're out?
She thinks I'm out, so she's with my husband, Emir. She stopped crying as soon as I left home and waved goodbye, so she should be okay.
Wow. So we have sort of a daughter's bedroom theme here, which we're not going to go into. There is no structure here. I'm kind of curious, though, Jonathan. Like, people probably expect you to talk about all this great technology stuff, and then you kind of hit them with some of this heavy stuff, which is the message, of course. But you know, I'm going to be curious to see how people kind of come back to you with what vulnerabilities, personal or whatever, they discovered. So, how'd the room feel for you, Jonathan?
Quiet. It felt very quiet, yeah. But I've not seen the tweets and so on, but people are very supportive. But yeah, I know the least about tech of all of us. You are my tech guy, so how am I going to talk about tech?
Then don't. Amy has a question. I'm going to ask. Oh, yeah.
Doesn't Amy have a question?
Yeah, I'll call on the young lady from Hawaii with the big smile.
Oh, the young lady. Thank you. My birthday's this week, so, or not actually this week. Sorry, I'm ahead of myself. Anyway, okay. My question was, I was really intrigued by the the little boy that you never told the story about. I want to know about that story.
Oh, okay.
I got all excited, and then you never told the story because I know you got carried away. But now I know. Now I want to know.
So that picture's been sort of dominating the news over here this week, last week, and it was a mother and two boys who were trying to emigrate from Syria, and they drowned. And so the picture hit the front pages, and it was this 3-year-old boy face down on the beach, dead.
No, the first one, the boy that you took the adolescence.
Oh, crikey! So yeah, so
the adolescent one, not that one. I know the Syrian one, but the one about you were talking about the photo shoot you did with the adolescents.
Yeah, so there was one guy one kid who just said, "Why are we doing this?" And all the rest were just saw me as a teacher, as an adult authority figure who should not be questioned. And so they just did as they were told. They stood in front of me. They had their picture taken. It came as a complete surprise. I mean, this is back in 2000, and then we didn't, for whatever reason, didn't have to have consent for the parents to take photographs of the kids. This is pre-digital for one, so we just didn't have the same concerns. But there was only one kid who said, "Why are we doing this? What's it for?" Everyone else just did as they were told and didn't question it at all. And that was my point. My point was, that kid was the least, I imagine, the one least likely to go to university because he was challenging the authority figure, rightly so as well. And they should all be asking, what is this for? But of course, we drum it out of them, we drum it out of them as a part of just being able to stay in school. As I say, my daughter cannot spoof her email addresses. She cannot use a VPN. She cannot. She's just not allowed. It's a condition of learning. So
yeah,
I don't think that doesn't seem right to me. But that kid's grown up by it's like 15 years ago. He's probably got kids of his own.
So what do you think we need to change about the way we do education to address that issue of, because children, because I have a 4-year-old, so she doesn't submit to authority at all. And it's really difficult as a parent to try to both teach her manners and then let her be herself. And so I imagine I just have the one child, but I imagine that teachers in a school where they have 20 kids or whatever, what do you think needs to start happening? Or?
No, well, we're as parents, we're quite strict with our kids, and we expect them to be children that other people don't look at and say dislike. Right? That would be the worst thing, wouldn't it? If someone looked at your kids and said, horrible kids, it's not their fault. And so I'm not talking about being impolite. I'm just talking about not necessarily accepting everything that you were told, and especially when the people don't know the answer. So this is the duty of care bit. This is the bit about the photographer protecting their sources. The teacher has a duty of care to protect the people they're teaching. And if they don't know the answer to something, the worst thing in the world they can do is pretend they do. Right? And so you have to position yourself as a co-learner, I think, and say, well, here are some of the questions perhaps we should be thinking about. What do you think?
Yes, I love that you were saying that you start the class with the questions, not the answers, and you want to think the answers with your students. So start with something that you don't know the answer to, rather than something that you do know, and then the class will be much more interesting.
Yes, because so in a world of infinite supply of information, your teacher's role is to be discerning in which information is appropriate. That's our role. Like the photographers, I think I see mine as enabling other people to better participate in their own representation. I think the teachers is not to be a conduit of information, but someone who helps other people to discern which information they should be.
It's a nice analogy between photographer and teacher, actually.
It worked.
I think we all know this, but I mean that idea about I won't say the thing about the guide and where they sit, but that's been around for a long time, and it doesn't really feel like much has shifted in that authority role of teacher, of having to be this voice of authority.
No, it's difficult, and of course, young children need to be. Being entirely idealistic, young children need to be organised, and that's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying is when we don't know the answers to the questions, don't pretend you do.
Yeah.
And I think that as students get older, we get into certain places where that co-learning really can happen. Like
yes, absolutely.
It's letting go of the structured. The curriculum has to be structured.
Yep.
And opening up the spaces. So it's like if I need to decide in my class, I had to open up 3 weeks because I want the students to teach in those 3 weeks the things that they want to learn the most about, rather than the things that I
It's a valuable experience for everybody. I mean, that thing with Matt Johnston, he completely changed the dynamic for me in my classes because I was able to share had someone to do it with. But he bridged the gap between me and the students because he was a little bit younger than me and a little bit older than them, and so maybe I was in a very lucky position there. But nevertheless, no going back.
Yeah.
So
I love when you give the evolution of your own thinking in your talk.
I wonder if I could ask you a question on a different angle, a bit about photography and open educational resources. And if you can elaborate a little bit on your position there, because you were talking a bit about giving away your what's the word I'm looking for?
Photographs?
Yeah, well, your
Intellectual property.
your income stream in essence.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So there was a guy called Richard Stacey, and he talks about. He says if you hitch your business model to the mode of distribution of stuff, but if you pitch it to the mode of information, then you're going to thrive. And David Campbell is someone else who builds on this idea. I'm mixing them up now. It's the other way around. So Richard Stacey talks about a lamplighter, two lamplighters. He imagines a village with two lamplighters in, gas lamplighters.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And he says one of them considers himself a lighter of gas lamps, and the other one considers himself someone who brings light, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so when the invention of the electricity comes along, one of them is got a good job.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, obviously he's just talking about rethinking your role.
Yeah.
But as a photographer, and sort of as far as open education resources go, and licensing my pictures for Creative Commons now, I don't think of myself as a supplier of pictures.
Mm-hmm.
Not to newspapers and magazines, at least. No, I see my value as being able to speak clearly with images. That's what I can do. Everyone can just, you can rattle off a bajillion pictures with your cell phone, but can you speak clearly with images? So that idea of visual literacy is something that is part of my currency. And then the other thing is getting heard, being trusted, working out how you make yourself into a trusted, credible source so that people listen to you.
I love that you have to be believed before you can be seen.
Yeah,
that was
it's true.
Really powerful.
That's a great quote.
Just check.
I worked out on how to sketch that one.
I think Simon wanted to ask something about language teaching.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Okay, so I think Simon had a question.
It's just that as a EFL teacher, so I spend a lot of time trying to get people to speak, and one thing that I've become more and more aware of is that it's a real intrusion often in somebody's situation to ask them to speak in front of other people that they may not like, they may not know. They may not want to speak about things that are actually in the agenda. So I think it's a bit like this question of privacy, is giving the person the choice where to speak, about what, and who with. This is Juliet.
Hello.
She's telling me I'm in her bedroom.
Yeah, get out of my bedroom, Daddy. You and your weird friends from the internet.
So that getting people to speak, is can be dangerous, can't it? I mean,
Sure.
So especially when you think about an open class. So an open class, I don't know who's going to turn up, and so the story, the journalist Dalia Kamisi, speaking from the Lebanon. Lots of journalists have done similar stories to her, have been disappeared. Her story is about people who have disappeared in the Lebanon. And the statistics and the numbers of people that are disappeared, in inverted commas, is staggering. But partway through that tour, if you listen to those interviews with her, partway through them, she gets power cuts, the door, everything stops because someone comes to the door, and a scary experience. Now, that's someone who's high profile. What about the girl who isn't allowed to go to school? What about the girl who had her nose cut off in those pictures? Right, the world press ones. So, what about if she starts to attend my classes but doesn't understand that she's leaving a digital footprint behind? Something as stupid as an internet browsing history. I mean, that's just the obvious ones. But what about all the other footprints that she's leaving behind that trail? The consequences for her and her family could be much worse than anything I could imagine, from teaching in Coventry or Newcastle, for goodness sake. And so, but then the other side is I have students that tell very, very personal stories, and again, they've done this with informed consent, hope, where they tell stories about everything from abuse, child abuse, to being raped, to parents committing suicide, to all these things, and I don't know. I mean, all one can do is have the conversation openly and empower them, hopefully, to make an informed choice, and then support them through that. But I mean, it's obvious, isn't it, when you're talking about something as upsetting as domestic abuse or whatever. It's easy to do it then. It's when someone just attends a maths class, and then they have to suffer the consequences of having done that. That's more worrying.
And there's multiple ways. I mean, we tend to think speak. When Simon said speak, we all think of people talking, and so there are many ways for people to communicate. And I think it's just like the example of your school, Jonathan, forcing your daughter to do something a certain way without allowing some user choice in that representation. So, when people come in here, not everybody wants to be on camera. Well, turn your camera off. We want to hear your voice. You don't like the voice. Your voice is very private. Well, use your words. Use your text. And we have all these affordances, and yet sometimes we just seem so rigid in what we expect people to do.
Yeah, and it's a nasty web as well, and it's evolving, isn't it? It means if we begin to think about security, then that's, as Bruce Schneier says, it's a process, not a product. And so, yeah, you can turn your camera off, but obviously you might have your IP address. You could you still have your smart device. I have your location data, and then maybe if you just turn up to the same chat each week, I can associatively map you to see who you are. So the worst ones as well is when you have this veil of assumed security. Where you think you're secure, you think you're being careful, but of course you're not. And I'm just playing at this stuff right now, and I still cock it up all the time. I try to use PGP signatures on my email, and I'm dreadful. God forbid I should ever be in a situation where I actually have to help someone who is in a difficult situation. I'm not prepared for it,
But you're aware.
I'm aware of just how utterly vulnerable and unprepared I am.
So someone has posted a question in the chat that I think came from Twitter, and they're talking about the point that you said that digital is not an option now. So we keep saying 21st century learners taking control of their learning, however, not entirely possible if it doesn't want to engage digitally. Yeah. So what do you think of that? Like, students have to engage digitally anyway.
I think digital is the default, isn't it? There isn't an option not to engage digitally. I mean, you're leaving a digital footprint anyway. But you have to have that conversation and talk about that. Some of the unintended consequences, the consequences of inconsequential data. I don't want to attend digitally. Okay, what does that mean? Does that mean that you don't want an email address? Does that mean that you don't want to carry a smart device? Does that mean you don't want to carry RFID chips from your library books? What does it mean?
So I mean, I know it's really, really complicated, but is there a way to simplify it for younger people, like turning off their location on their phone when they're not using it? I mean, what are some of the simple things? Is there somewhere out there that has some of these?
Yeah, there are lots of little steps one can make. I mean, the first one is to make them aware of the location, frequently visited locations on an iPhone. The fact that its default is it's switched on. The fact that, but even still, it becomes very boring very quickly for young people. They don't want to hear that stuff that Dad's on about. And so one has to find more creative ways of.
Yeah, if I was like 7, I would think that's neat. So but you don't want to hit me with all this fear stuff, and so much is this. Fear and the looming predators, and so it's hard.
No, you empower them with it. So you make it into a game, and when people are empowered with it, then they can be in control of it, informed by default. So there are great games to be had with geotagging, geocaching, for instance. To take the example of the frequently visited locations, so you begin to understand how locations are mapped digitally and are recorded. That would be a starting point.
There's also that book by Cory Doctorow that you recommended to me when we were doing C courses. I can't remember the name of the book.
Little Brother.
There's a Little Brother is a great starting point. Fantastic. Homeland. Little Brother is the one that's fantastic to do with
and those are targeted for younger people, right?
Yeah, I mean, I just loved it as an adult. But I mean, I loved it 3 times by listening to it with my kids. So it's fantastic. And we had some really sophisticated conversations after listening to those books. Listen to them, didn't read them. We listened to them. The audio versions are available for download for free. But no, that was the single most useful exercise to talk about digital literacy.
And how old were they when they listened to that?
The youngest was 11. Yeah, 11 and 13.
Because it's really useful that he's written them with kids as the main characters, going through and being subversive with the way they use technology.
I think what we should do is we should ask Cory. I mean, these books are great for young adults, 11 plus, but what do we do for younger people? And we ask him and get him involved in this conversation. I know he'll sort of suggest
Let's do that.
people. Yeah, he'll suggest people.
We have an action point at the end of this virtually connecting session.
Jonathan's gonna get us in with Cory Doctorow.
Okay, I think we better start wrapping up unless someone has something urgent to say. No? I want to show you what Sarah Honeychurch has been doing while we're in this hangout.
Awesome.
Can you see? Okay. She's also doing useful stuff. She's got an action point.
She's knitting something delightful.
And she's working on the
that's
second.
beautiful. Wow.
That's what I did in your keynote.
Useful stuff. Multitasking. Multitasking. Okay, anybody have anything else you want to add?
No, except thanks for doing this.
Thank you guys so much. It was great talking to you all.
Good to see you.
Staying up, everyone. Thanks for staying up.
Have fun in Manchester.
Thank you very much.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Oh, they're still there. They're still
Still live.
We're still live.
We
Yeah, the party's over. There goes Manchester. So, anybody want to hang around? I will maintain. Sometimes it's fun to talk about these things afterwards. Other times people are like, I gotta go to work or I gotta go to sleep. So I'm wired for coffee. You've been doing a lot of these, Simon. You're like Mr. Virtual Buddy now.
I've just been thinking about this virtual thing. I don't think virtual is a word I want to keep.
Yeah.
But I'm not sure what to use.
Hmm.
It's very difficult. I mean, when I speak to my kids on my phone, I don't think I'm speaking virtually.
Yeah.
But I'm not in the same place.
Right.
I mean, where this business of virtual.
Well, it's the so like
If it's taking up my time, this isn't the real time. This is not virtual.
Yeah. I agree. Until we come up with a better word, but it's like online versus offline.
It's physical presence versus a virtual presence because we're not all in the same place. We can't connect. Literally, I can't shake your hand.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
We'll make up a word. And
We'll have to find another word. I don't like virtual.
Well,
All
let's
right.
make one up.
I think it's like real. It's real time for me. This is real time.
I heard about residential for the first time last week. So residential instead of face-to-face. So before we had like face-to-face versus online, and AK he was talking about residential versus online, which I thought was interesting.
Yeah. Hey, good morning. Autumn just showed up in time for us to.
Please.
Good morning.
I was watching in the background, but I was a little late, and I just thought it would be rude to come in late. But now that it's like, I don't know, after show,
Yeah.
I felt a little better about it.
Tell me after I'm out. I'll talk to you all later.
Okay. Thanks for
Okay,
coming,
then.
Anthony. Nice
Bye.
to meet you.
Did you get a chance to watch Jonathan's keynote? Because I didn't.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did.
Yeah. So he talked about like informed consent and issues like that, copywriting.
Boy, how do you encapsulate what he talked about? I mean,
Maybe I should watch the keynote. Yeah. Don't worry about
it's
it.
worth it. I mean, he tells this story about his daughter coming home from school and that they've given each kid a email address that's based upon like their first name and something. And basically, he says to the teacher, like, in 5 minutes, I can show you everything about this person's family. And so, a lot of the message is stuff that schools are doing that kind of break people's information thing open. A lot just because they're not aware of the impact of what our digital presence means. And so, it's kind of getting that scary territory. And he did some stuff about trying to remind people of what all the location information means with their devices. That when students come into their classroom and turn on Facebook, they're giving away things inferentially about people who may be in their circles or in that room who said, I didn't really decide to tell you I was in this classroom, but because you turned on Facebook and it knows something about my relationships, it gets into that messy kind of territory. And so, he had this thing of, he says, we're pretty comfortable with people coming in that learning with digital is like the default. People are aware. It's not like, this is something new and novel that only geeks have. But he said learning of digital is not the default, like knowing the implications of turning on this device.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so it's about, he's basically talking about digital literacies, right?
That keeps coming up.
Yeah, and it's not the literacy that we're used to talking about, like being facile with media. It's like being facile with what we're giving away in terms of information. Often, not even thinking about it.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of the dark side of literacy. It's like knowing what. So that there's the one side of digital literacy, which is like, how do I do this? How does this work? How do I manipulate this tool to do the thing that I want to do? And what I like about that question is like, what am I doing in doing that? What am I giving away? What am I putting out there into the world? What else comes with that?
When I say digital literacies, I was thinking about like in a broader way, like the way Howard Rheingold describes it, like he talks about crack detection and attention and so on. So yeah, I also experienced that in my classes. I taught classes at a US university, undergraduate classes, and we had similar problems. Like students, they weren't really aware of their digital presence, and so it was really interesting to see that. Like we had to talk about those in class, which was really useful. They liked doing that. They liked talking about it and discussing them, and yeah.
There can be something like you get aware of it, and then you get to this kind of point of being paralyzed because you almost feel like there's nothing you can do. Jonathan's school, they mandate this thing, and so how do you crack that? He asks them questions, and the teachers are not aware of these things that the school is asking of students, which seems to be logical in the sense of efficiency for what the school needs to know. But thinking about in this network society that there's we're not just in our school when we're in our school. When this thing goes on.
I think one of the problems with that is that once you start, because we can focus on these sort of digital literacies, but I mean, as soon as you walk into a bank, as soon as you buy anything, as soon as you you travel, you're basically logged wherever you go. So, in a sense, I think I can understand a lot of students, and in a sense, my feeling about it is a bit the same, is that if you thought about all the ways that you're actually tracked, well, there's no way out apart from going to sort of hide. But even if you hide in some cave in Bora Bora, we're still confronted by that idea. And I think that in a sense, I think there are more important things to sort of get on with, like these sort of conversations. And I think that there can be this sort of paralysis. And I think that rather the opposite. I think that the fear element, I think, is often used. It's like the parents who will say, I know this about you, and I know what you're doing, and that's used as a control. And I think that, in a sense, my feeling is that if there are enough people who are actually having conversations about this, then there comes a question of who do we want to know and do we care?
Well, and I see some parallels in the fear just in society at large, I mean, we're living in a time where there's some big bad things that are happening, right? There's like mass shootings, there's all of these bad things, and then you see the hype get thrown up about those things, and sometimes you kind of have to wonder, is this more hype? I mean, they say that you're more likely to get hit by lightning than to actually be, a part of one of these kind of things or whatever. They get these crazy little statistics, but you hear about these really bad things happening, and then with all of the news coverage and with all of all of the hype that comes along with talking about them, people hit that paralysis. Of fear. where, they don't want to travel, they don't want to go places, they don't want to, you can't just, like, not leave your house, right? So I think it's the same kind of thing on the web. Yeah, bad things can happen there. Yeah, your identity could get stolen. Yeah, somebody could troll you, and, you could get, like, somebody who came after you and started saying horrible things to you or creating horrible memes about you. But is that really going to happen? And how much are you losing in terms of knowledge, in terms of friendships, in terms of just getting through your life, right? Because so much is online these days. If you were to really just cut it all out and be like, okay, I'm just staying away from that. That's not something that I'm going to do. I'm going to do everything on paper, everything through the mail.
That was interesting to listen to him, because coming from Turkey, in Turkey bad things happen all the time. And it's the way life is. Life is difficult. Life is full of tensions. So I think young people's attitudes is quite different than what you described. Their parents, they don't know anything about, well, most of the parents, they don't know much about online technologies. They don't know much about the internet. But the young population is finding ways around the technology because, say like the government, they ban YouTube and then they do other things. They log on to YouTube from other sites, VPN and stuff like that. And it just becomes this, I don't know, it becomes the culture of the youth in Turkey. People know about these things, these types of things. So I think it's interesting because the way we approach fear, digital technologies is also different,
But I think there's another
generalized
thing,
terribly, just very generally speaking, very broadly speaking.
I think sometimes you also have to trust kids, because I think the kids that I work with, this sort of group that I have now, are much more au fait with what things are going on than maybe a couple of years ago. So the whole business of Snapchat has made them much more aware of the, this business of who they're sharing with what, and they're playing around with it. And I think that this reminds me of one story. I went to Glasgow with my sister, and we went to a park, and the whole park was cordoned off by police, riot police, dogs. And I said, what the hell is going on? And she said the police were there because the day before there had been a flash mob, and the whole park was running around with kids sort of getting drunk and breaking stuff. And then they had announced on the same Facebook site there will be a flash mob the following day. And of course the police were there the day after. And they had to be there just in case nothing happened. But in fact there was nobody there.
It was a diversion. The flash mob.
Yeah.
A false signal.
Guys, I'm gonna run because I gotta set up for the next hangout. So,
okay, then.
Are you all gonna be there?
Yeah.
All right.
Sure. I'm already up.
You mean the one at 1:30?
Isn't there one at? I thought there was one.
Oh,
at
11:35. Right, there's another one.
Yeah, there's one coming up. I gotta get the link out. So.
Okay.
Yeah. Yes,
I'm so glad, Autumn, you want to be in charge.
I really don't want to be in charge, but I feel like...
Yes, you do. You said it. It's too late now.
No, I do. I want to be in charge. I'm taking it, but it's not that I want to. It's really weird and awkward.
You do. You wanted to. Otherwise, you wouldn't have told me you wanted to. Who's in charge? That's the question.
Right here.
Okay, so we have to be worried about Autumn.
Okay.
Thanks very much.
Send me a link.
Yeah, thanks everyone.
All right, good to see you. Goodbye.